we asked Brian Reyes here is, what about tax implications of buying real estate inside of my retirement account, since a lot of folks do that here?
You can invest through a custodial type IRA or 401k plan. It has to be a qualified custodian. If you go to Wells Fargo and say, hey, I want to set up a IRA, they're going to put you in stocks and bonds because they don't want to take the risk. Your big wirehouses, Wells Fargo, Merrill, they're not in a spot to take a risk. They're going to say, yep, stocks and bonds. So in trust, equity trust, those are some, there's all types of them out there. JWB, I think, has a lot of good resources with those guys. And so the fees can be high. You go set one up with Wells Fargo, it's minimal. Whereas you go set one up with one of these qualified custodians, the fees can just be a lot higher. It is what it is, but it's the only vehicle that allows you access to invest in kind of non-traditional asset classes, real estate, different things. The reporting is the Wild West. I'll just be honest with you. It's gotten a little bit better, but it's still not very good. I would say these custodians do the best they can with it, but there's so much that goes on. So if you are, going to do this, you need to make sure you talk through some of the transactions with a CPA, because you do run into unrelated business taxable income issues if you invest in real estate and there's debt involved in that real estate. Some of the income and or the gain might be taxable to you. And there's a Form 990T that has to be filed from your IRA or your 401k if you have unrelated business taxable income each year. And if you don't file that form, the penalties are pretty steep. So if you're doing it, I would make sure you're doing, enough of it that would warrant, having a qualified CPA that would look at it and analyze these forms. The unrelated business taxable income rates are much higher than just your normal traditional income tax rates. You sell a property and it had debt on it, and sometimes just the underwriting of debt. They're like, you go to buy a property and you want to get debt. How do you even get debt through your IRA? You can't most times. But if you're investing in a fund that has it, the fund would generally outline the unrelated business taxable consequences of your investment inside that fund, and then that would pass through you on to a Schedule K1, and that might then require your IRA or your 401k to file a Form 990T and pay tax. If you pay tax, it's not the end of the world. It's just cost to doing business, right? If the investment's really good, just be very mindful about it. Trader business income is subject to unrelated business taxable income. So if you're a real estate professional and you flip houses or you lend or whatever, be very careful, because if you're doing the same types of things inside your IRA, the IRS could deem it your trader business and the whole thing be taxable to you. What they do is, if you have $1 million in your IRA and you only have one tainted investment, they tax the whole value of that specific IRA if they were to come in and see a tainted transaction. CPA like me, I'm not a real estate guy. If I did a real estate transaction inside an IRA, I'd be fine because I have a day job of doing accounting services. So someone like me, a professional, you'd be fine. But if you do a lot of real estate transactions already, just be very, very mindful of the unrelated business taxable income issues inside an IRA or 401k.
Okay. I heard a couple of things in there.
Mm-hmm.
The number one thing that sticks out, well, first of all, he kind of explained this whole idea of you need a reliable custodian, kind of the Wild West. I understand that with JWB, you guys have like trusted custodians that you use, that you recommend to people, and that kind of mitigates a little bit of that risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And when he was talking about the Wild West, he wasn't saying that using a custodian is the Wild West. He was talking about the reporting is the Wild West, working with a custodian. And that's just the nature of the investments you're allowed to invest in. A self-directed custodian, like Brian was talking about, like a NewView or Equity Trust or Horizon Trust, these are some of the ones we've used and seen our clients use. They are going to allow you to invest in non-traditional assets. Traditional assets would be stocks and bonds. Really easy to report on stocks and bonds. Non-traditional assets would be things like rental properties. There's a lot more moving parts. So it gets a lot easier when you work with a vertically integrated provider like JWB to make sure that the reporting is easier to do. Like, for example, every year, like I'm a client of NewView. And so every year on the investments that I have within my retirement accounts, they ask me for a fair market value. So they need to understand what the fair market value is of my real estate. Well, I'm not going to go out there and do an appraisal on the property, right? That would cost hundreds of dollars, and that's not required. But what JWB does for our clients is we provide that fair market value for you. We're real estate agents. We can do a comparable market analysis for you. And we just provide that for our clients. It makes it easy for a client to take that fair market market value, give it right to NewView or whoever they work with. And you take this concept of being the wild, wild west, which it is for most people who invest with a self-directed custodian, and you really streamline and make it a lot easier.
Awesome. Okay, good. Good to know. And then the next thing that he talked about, essentially, if I'm doing this and I want to be wary and I want to talk to my CPA about it, I think I got to bring up the idea of unrelated business taxable income and have a conversation with my CPA about that.
You know, he talked a lot about that, and it's very good to be aware of unrelated business interest tax. But let's just clarify here. That is only if you're taking debt on the property in your retirement account. So for most people out there, you're shocked to know that you can even buy real estate in your retirement account. I would say the most people buy real estate in their retirement account now using cash or a combination of cash with some debt in it. But more often than not, it's cash. If you're buying real estate in your retirement account right now, and they're all cash transactions, you don't have to worry about unrelated business income tax. Also, if you set up your retirement account strategy right off the bat, there are vehicles you can use where you can take debt out on the property and you still don't pay unrelated business income tax. It's also known as UBIT, so I'm just going to call it UBIT. You don't pay UBIT if you use the right vehicle. So one vehicle would be a solo 401k. If you're investing in a solo 401k to invest in rental properties, then you can take out all the debt you want and not pay UBIT. But what Brian's talking about is for those who take on debt and it's not in one of those vehicles like a solo 401k, UBIT can really bite you and then you know what. Many people do not understand it or aren't aware of it. And so again, it comes back to working with a vertically integrated team who's done this, seen this 1,000 times or more, and can just say, okay, hey, if we're going to put this portfolio together for you and it's not going to be in a solo 401k, and we're going to have debt be a part of your retirement account portfolio, then let's talk about what UBIT is so you know going in. And one thing that Brian also mentioned is like, hey, listen, if it comes down to paying UBIT, but it's the best thing for your return on investment for you and for your long-term goals, then hey, it's just another expense. So a lot of scary things I think that we talked about there, that the risk can be mitigated or the scariness can be mitigated by working with a professional team who's done this 1,000 times and can do some simple things to make it easier for you.
Good explainer. Okay.